Hey everyone, Thomas from masteringexplained.com here. Today we're gonna master a more aggressive kind of music than we have done so far. Some of you might know that I have mastered lots of metal records over the years. I've worked with albums from Opeth, Meshuggah, Catatonia, lots of metal bands. And it's a genre that I really enjoy working with, so it's gonna be a lot of fun. And today we're gonna master an EP with a band called Blighted Eye. They're from the United States, and we have 4 tracks ready now to be mastered. So let's go. Okay, so I've made a draft of one of the tracks, and I think it sounds good. Let's have a listen. And I should note that when I switch to the original version, it will be level matched to the mastered version. So we will hear a fair comparison between the mastered version and the original mix. The mix is very good, it has all the elements that it needs, but there are some things that I think we can tweak. And what I've done, I've worked quite a bit with the high mids in order to make it sound present and smooth and aggressive at the same time. And one thing with the high mids, especially when you have distorted guitars like this, is that it's important to get all these resonances and build-ups in check, because this is a critical area for the ear. If we have resonances and build-ups, then they tend to mask things happening around them, and it will sound a bit fatiguing. And what do I mean by resonances and build-ups? Well, let's have a listen to these bands that I have reduced here. If we listen to this area, for example, we have a it's a quite constant sound coming from this tiny area, and the same goes for this little area. And we can hear that if we remove these dips, and then add them back in, you can hear that the high mids really calms down quite a lot. Getting rid of these resonances and build-ups is very important for making the high mids sound clear and present, because when we have reduced those, then we can make a sort of broad boost in this area to make everything jump forward. And I also have some dynamic EQ processing in the TDR Nova, and this is doing pretty much the same thing. There are narrow filters that are working when they are needed. So it's this area. Now we're listening to what the filter is doing. This is what it removes. These two things will help making the high mids sound more smooth. And we only want to remove as much as is needed in order to make it sound present and clear. If we remove too much, then it will sound dull and muddy instead. So it's a balancing act between removing things and adding things in order to make this whole area sound present, but without resonances and build-ups. And then I worked a bit with the low end. I've reduced some of the lowest sub-frequencies and also made some other more narrow tweaks here. And I also have a separate chain for the lows within this processing chain. So I can build my own multiband compressor by adding things in this little path. So the things I'm doing with the low end is that I compress, and it will just keep the low end tight and focused, And to help it even more, it's this transient monster from Stillwell Audio. I think it sounds really good. I don't think it was meant to be used for mastering, but I do that. Then I have this button punch. I don't think I have explained this, but in short, what it does is we have a bit of processing on the mix, and it also adds a bit of level, but this is dynamically blended into the signal depending on how loud the signal is at the moment. So when things get loud, it will get even louder. And all in all, it acts like a sort of expander, but not really. It's expander-ish of some kind. Yeah, that's another video, I think. And after that, we're heading for the limiter. And this is not working very much, actually, because the mix itself is quite compact as it is. So it's more or less just catching some peaks here and there. And in this case, I also have a second limiter after the limitless limiter. And this is the old Waves L2 Ultra Maximizer. You probably have seen this, and it's a quite useless limiter actually if you use it as a limiter, but it has some very nice characteristics when you use just a tiny bit of it. Okay, so now I have worked with all the tracks, and what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna hand this over to Sofia. I want her opinion on the sound. I think we're in the ballpark where it should be, but it's always nice to get feedback and to get a second opinion on things. Also, I've heard some noises, and Sofia has exceptional hearing for catching these kind of things. So I want her to have a listen as well and see what we should do about those things. Okay, so Sofia has listened and I have received a list of things to have a look at, so we're going to do that. There are some clicks and some distortions, and the way I do this is I use a program called Isotope RX, and I have a slightly old version of it, but it's very functional. I know that that is unintentional. I have already noticed that in another track, and I was in contact with the producer, and he confirmed that it's not intentional, so we need to remove it. So I usually use the click section in Isotope RX in order to take care of this. So I'll just do that. That's better. All right, so there we have it, the finished EP. Now I'm gonna render everything, export it, and we're gonna do quality control. And unless we find something, we will send this off to the client. And hopefully everything is okay, but there might be revisions, we don't know yet. So I will finish everything and send it off to the client, and then we see what kind of feedback we get. So I'll be back.